really want to do the BWR. And it's the Belgian waffle ride is a big one. It's 146 miles. And I was like, this isn't going to happen. I'm not going to train for it. Like, he's just shit talking. And lo and behold, not only did he do it, but he like crushed.
Wow.
And it was like he'd only been riding bikes for a year, but he's just a strong guy and strong-willed. So
Right.
I'd ride hard. And 146 miles later, we finished with almost no training.
Eric Bostrom, I'm super excited for you to be on my podcast. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Cool, Eric. Pleasure to join you. This is well, it's great, right? Like we're kind of all semi-trapped, so it's cool to connect. Like just having that human connection. I mean that's what makes us not machine, right? So
I agree.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, obviously we don't know each other at all, and we did text a little bit. And I'm going to tell everybody right now that you did bump me for a camping trip, which I'm totally gutted and upset about. But, I'll live. Okay. Where did you go? And do you go camping a lot?
Fair. Yeah, we do. But it's kind of glamping. We're a little soft. That's okay, though. We have like a Sprinter RV. So, and it's really great. Pretty agile for getting like in this case, the bicycles on back. Sometimes like motorcycles, because some of my favorite places to ride are pretty close here to Southern California, kind of like Southern Sierras and whatnot. And in the case of last week when I kind of ditched you, we went to Southern Utah instead, because Utah is like kind of pretty relaxed with the whole COVID thing. So
right.
The BLM space is open, so it was great. It was like we did 8 days of just like really just I guess kind of our little habitation there in on BLM land, and it was rad. The terrain there it's Zion National Park, kind of like right at the base, and it's sort of a mix. Well, it's right where they do the Red Bull Rampage as well. So there's like a ton of different technical riding, and then some like nice flowy stuff, and a lot of, and the whole time you're just surrounded by like a Yosemite like background. I mean, I think for anyone that appreciates Yosemite, like go to Zion too. The place is just absolutely amazing. It's really colorful, and so that was kind of that's why you got ditched. I'm sorry, but it had to happen. I was getting a little indoor crazy after the last 2 months of not doing much, and then on the way home we got to visit my brother in Vegas, and it was rad. I mean, literally the first person I've hugged other than my partner Janelle.
Wow.
First hug I've had in 2 months, and it's that that thing that makes us human, right? Like to just be able to like hug and embrace, and that was I think I would have drove to Vegas for that.
Just for that, yeah. And that's amazing. Again, I was kidding. I'm obviously not upset that you went camping. I'm not a big camper. I've done glamping once, and it was so glampy, like you wouldn't believe. Like, it's my buddy who set everything up, right? And he's not a big outdoors guy, so I was really surprised to find that he goes camping. Dude, you wouldn't believe it if I told you. There's a foot-operated washing machine that you can buy.
No way. That's stepped up. We had to hand wash some clothes in the sink, but that's not too bad either.
Oh, yeah, apparently it's a thing. So I'm like, I don't feel like I'm outdoors like at all. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
those are pretty crazy. You haven't yet. You obviously you're fully retired. I asked you, as a little jib right out in the beginning before the podcast started. I go, you got to race again? I mean, you've got a full year off. You're relaxed. You're rested. I go, if somebody gave you a ride, and you're like, no, I'm good. So, what has retirement been like? How's that transition? Has that happened? I'll tell you before you answer that. When I got laid off in 2008, and I got laid off because the economy was bad at the time, right? the transition from being a quality assurance engineer, very, very nerdy, geeky thing to do with computers. I went and I did pure sales, like literally right after. So even though it was in the same field, technical computers, the skill set was profoundly different, right? What has transitioned from, racing been like to now?
Well, it's had its challenges, right? Like, I laid myself off in 2008. I'm pretty sure I could have got a ride in 2009. But since you're going to ask me, I went to Brazil, and by the time I got there, I realized I was just dealing with a bunch of thieves, and it was really difficult, and kind of it spent a lot of time there trying to straighten things out. And it's an ongoing difficulty, but like a lot of life lessons, like when you're racing, when you're kind of in a bubble, you have this team of maybe a dozen people around you that are really protecting you and trying to get you where you want to be, which is to the front. And the other part about racing that I just love is exactly where you're at. I mean, it's pretty obvious whether you're in fifth or fourth, and whether you're 10 seconds out of lead or 10 seconds in the lead, right?
Yeah.
And life just isn't that way. It's so damn gray. So this is my analogy for a checkered flag. It's black and white because you know exactly where you're at. And I really want a checkered flag in life. Hopefully that's not the 6 feet under checkered flag. Um, so I think with the that is the gift of racing and competition in general is just knowing exactly where you're at. Kind of after laying myself off, I went back to racing and just realized like how great it is. So I will never stop competing for that reason. I mean, to give yourself a carrot, whether it's just beating your friends. And it's funny, Ben and I did a podcast here recently, and we were talking about like the hardest race I ever won. And people ask like, what's the hardest race you ever won? Who's the toughest competitor? I'm like, it's like Ben when we were on 80s, right? Like
Yeah.
I'd have tire tracks all the way up and down my left side because he'd just keep running into me. But those were like the best races. It doesn't really matter if you're racing for a world championship or just trying to beat your brother, but to have that competition and the drive, and that's where I think that's the way to stay away from the gray zone, because life passes pretty quickly
Yeah.
without bookmarks, and events are really good bookmarks, like to say, oh, that happened in 2008, this happened in 2014, and without those bookmarks, it's all just kind of that back into that vague gray area. So I say make some events, like try to make these races, and kind of bigger picture. Like you only get fast when you're racing people. People ask like, how do you, how do you accomplish, this racing achievements? Like, well, from chasing a competition, you can go out and do tens of thousands of laps on a track day environment. And granted, if you had like somebody that you're really competitive with, you could step it up. But when you take the starting line and you actually make a full race effort, that's when you gain the speed, because you realize that you're probably not going to be where you want to be in the beginning. And after kind of going through that process, you start finding the speed and you start latching on to people that are faster than you. And then eventually you're kind of racing for that position where you want to be. So if you want to go fast, you need to race. It's not to say that you need to just go and try harder. A lot of people go, well, what do I do to go faster? Do I just try harder? No, you need to know what you're asking of the motorcycle. And so maybe that's for a little later in the show here, but that's where I say you could really use a coach, right?
Right.
So, and I guess on the coaching side of things, since I got there, was like if you look at other sports, athletes spend a lot of time in front of a coach, and if you look at motorcycle racing, very few athletes spend time in front of a coach. So it's really really important, and unfortunately it's missed in our sport. I think had I had a regular coach during the early part and peak part of my career, I could have avoided a lot of mistakes, and it would have been worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Um, I actually wanted to touch on why I decided to reach out to you. One of the things I've always been fascinated in racing, and I've never asked anybody, okay? I've never asked anybody is how come racers, all professional guys seemingly, have the ability to throw a leg over the bike no matter how much injured or how injured they are, right? I mean, everybody has that one epic story of, dude, I could barely drag my foot over it and then I came in third or I hit, got a podium. Like, what is it about you guys that just have that ability to ignore pain? Is it a better recovery program? What is it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's desire mixed with this is what I've worked so hard to get to, and
Mm,
I just have to be there to do the job on Sunday no matter what. I kind of a segue into my business and Backmate is because I really believe that athletes are great at recovery because they don't have a choice. If you don't
mm,
recover, you don't get the contract, or you miss the event, you don't get the contract, and you're like begging groceries or something. Not to beg on people begging groceries. Sorry, that was terrible. But
I know what you
you
think.
get the point.
Yeah.
Um, so 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 it there's a very important recovery process that happens, and in the mind, and obviously pretty good resources too, so that helps, if you have a team around you, that can bring that recovery down. But in the case of like, hey, I was testing, or I was racing last weekend and I broke collarbone, and now it's a week later and I need to make this national championship event. Like, there's no recovery going on, right? Like, you have
Right.
a good surgeon that's going to plate you together, and then you just gotta you have to bear it. And so you cheat the effort a little bit on the motorcycle, right? Like, um, meaning you can't cheat it that much, but the motorcycle will carry you along. And I always laugh because I do these motorcycle camps. I kind of do coaching with Fast Track at Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, and then do some flat track camps. And I'll watch, like a Navy SEAL, like literally Navy SEAL, but like the fittest of fit. And
Sure.
we're on these little Kawasaki 140s, and just wore out, right? Like, this little bike is just flipping them. And it's because they haven't found the dance with the motorcycle yet. They haven't found that efficiency. So, to kind of answer your question, at the highest level, you should know all the efficiencies of the motorcycle, and you can kind of get away with a lot. Like, you can really lock your body in. So if you have a weak member, let's say you broke your foot or you broke your collarbone, you can do so much by, and which is really the way I teach, which is by riding from your core and locking yourself into the fuel cell, uh, and and more or less avoiding putting pressure on that
Mm,
broken wing or whatever. So
right.
that's really it, using the efficiency of the riding technique to get around that. And then ultimately there's just adrenaline at the starting line, and you get through it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So, is your business centered around helping the injured rider get better results in a shorter amount of time to ride around the injury, or is it an overall, like a recovery program?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. The Backmate is really an educational program. We sell several devices, and will continue to develop more technical devices, and it's really centered around spine health.
Mm,
And with it's not necessarily for the athlete, but my neck injury retired me, and I didn't really know it. I just knew that racing a motorcycle was too damn uncomfortable for me to do,
mm,
and so I kind of went like this, this kind of extreme route with, medications, trying to numb the symptom without ever addressing the problem, and really stunting the body's healing mechanism. And the other option for me was completely on the other side, which was the surgery method. and I really didn't want to have any surgery down on my cervical spine. So,
Right.
but the part that I missed was like this very straight, I mean, like the center road, which is doing more therapy work. And I had certainly done physical therapy between 2003 and 2008, 9, but it wasn't effective because I wasn't really doing it when I needed it, which was pretty much every day, especially considering my injury. So the Backmate method is pretty simple, which is to, in relax the nervous system and increase circulation with kind of trigger point massage, and that puts the body into a restorative state so that it can heal. And it's amazingly powerful. If we look at all of our stress from our job, whether it's whether it's the extreme end of professional sports to sitting in a chair all day long,
Right.
it's just these compressive forces that that can really be debilitating. And it doesn't take too much to renourish these, whether it's the discs in the spine or whatnot, a little bit of movement. So it's sort of like these very obvious sectors of health, which is movement and sleep, and then exercise and weight. So like keeping your weight down, keeping the sleep good, and the hormone levels high. And so with those things, we can pretty much heal because our bodies do replace themselves fairly quickly. In a matter of days, weeks, and months, that the entire body replaces itself. So how do we make this process, optimize this process?
Is there a correct sleeping protocol that the average person, boy or girl, man or woman, should adhere to? I mean, you hear all the time, hey man, I can sleep 4 hours a day and be functional and be, whatever, and then, but is there an
Yeah,
optimum time?
it's a great question. There are some outliers. I think it's about 5% of people can actually do 4 hours of sleep and be functional and healthy, but it's a very small percentage.
Mm.
And for the rest of society, that looks more like 7 to 8.5 hours. So you need to kind of find your window. One thing's for sure, if people are getting less than 7 hours of sleep, the ability to regulate their weight and the BMI is radically decreased. So if somebody is having let's say having trouble controlling their weight, the first thing you can say is, well, how much are you sleeping, right? Like, and then you go and do, of course, diet and whatnot. But if you're not sleeping enough, the body produces cortisol, and you have more inflammation, and so you're going to have more pain, and you're going to have trouble controlling your BMI. So some pretty simple, I think, pretty simple solutions, like pretty obvious solutions to stay down that middle path and really avoid medication, which disables the body's natural healing process. And then of course, and there's a time and place for everything, but we don't want to do surgery unless
Right.
you're literally just crippled.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's never good to have any kind of invasive surgery at any time if you can get away from it. Um, we also texted, or I texted you the other day. Again, it was bugging you, like, "Hey, you slicked me. Here's a plate of meat." Only to have you tell me, "Dude, I haven't eaten meat." When did you? Are you a vegetarian or a vegan?
Yeah, I'm pretty flex. Like my rule is, if I kill it, I'll eat it. But the problem is, I don't really kill stuff. Like, so it's like a philosophical
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
Um, I just I grew up in the country, and I had like that connection, and like you really hurt, like that whole process was really important. And to buy meat in the grocery store is weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very lacks that connection between the animals.
Mm.
But then the more I learned, I was just like, oh my God, like the meat industry is like really messed up. And then looking further and further into health, um, it became pretty obvious that eating the there were too many disadvantages to eating animal products,
Mm.
from having trouble knowing the source of the products to just kind of dirty fuel in the body. So going to the plant-based thing, but the real thing that eluded me for a long time, because I've been sort of plant-based for almost 20 years, and the and it's not to say that I like special times, like I'll eat that like piece of cheese or whatever on the, or an egg. I'm not like, it's more philosophical, so I just don't want to. But but I think the part that eluded me the most was how important fats were. And at the time when I first kind of went away from meat, I was really struggling to understand how to feel good about just eating like vegetables, and then ultimately you'd get hungry, and that would lead you to eating more starches and carbohydrates, and then those are inflammatory, and you don't feel that good, and I hadn't got onto the fat thing yet, and now I'm fully hip to the fat thing, which is fat's like the best thing, right? Like the more fat you eat, the better you feel, kind of. I mean, you obviously can take that way too far, but I'm talking good fats, whether it's like MCT oil, coconut oil, avocado, olive oil, kind of, but you want to, of course, check your sources on these things to make sure that they're quality products. But with the fat, the body's very, very good at adapting to the fuel source. And once you kind of get that ticked, which only takes less time, it might happen instantaneously, I don't really know, but I think you can tick it quickly, like within a week. And then you're just like, oh, well, I'll have a salad for dinner and I'll go to sleep feeling great.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, aren't you going to be hungry? And I'm like, no, because I have like the olive oil bottle and I'm just like this, right? And then people go travel to, like Greece or whatever, and like, wow, it's weird. I'm like losing weight. I feel great. And my body doesn't hurt. And I don't know why. It's like, well, because you just ate gallons and gallons of fat.
It's funny you say that because I've actually been keto for the last, I started in September. Now I'm short. I'm only 5'9". I'm skinny, naturally skinny to begin with. I think the heaviest I've ever weighed in my life was like 162 pounds. And that was literally drinking like, I don't know, 2 protein shakes and like half a gallon of water. Like literally, I cannot put on weight. But I went on keto because I have psoriasis. And that's just inflammation of the skin effectively, right? And I found that when I got onto the keto diet, I still ate meat, but I was very, fat based. That actually did help with the inflammation and helps with the it's called psoriatic arthritis. Just think of it arthritis, but it's because of psoriasis. And that pretty much went away. Now, the funny thing is it took me like, I don't know, like 2 weeks to get into ketosis, right? Like to adapt to fat. And my wife did it literally in 2 days. And I'm like, you skinny so and so, like I can't believe you, right? And she doesn't need it, right? She doesn't need to be on it. But I'm like, just do it for dare, for kicks, right? And it'd be nice. And so yeah, it's been good. So I do see the benefits. I just can't stop eating meat quite just yet.
Yeah, hey, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're all gonna do what's best for us. I think, when people ask me like, what should I do with my diet? It's like, just eat more vegetables and eat more fat. Like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna cut anything, cut down on those boxed foods, the carbohydrates that are just so easy to go into your cabinet and like chow
Yeah.
down on. Like those things are harmful to your body. You're going to feel slower in the mind, and your body's probably going to ache, and your recovery is going to be slower. So just kind of, and it's pretty simple, right? Like eat fresh food.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Although, you know what? I'm addicted to there's these keto bars. Can't remember who makes it. It's called keto bars from Costco. And bro, I am so addicted to it. It's like mint chocolate. And
Nice.
it's got like, I don't know, like maybe 6 grams of carb total, which isn't bad at all, right? It's still, I can still stay in ketosis with that, but dude, it's like, I don't know, it's like crack. It's so addictive.
There's
Anyway,
some great bars out there, and they're really fresh. Like some of them are they're legitimately fresh. They're pretty fresh food for packaged food.
yeah.
So yeah, I think being often done on the bicycle and still like competing in bicycle races. Like you're going to eat some pretty simple, so well some pretty simple sugars, and those are some of my go-tos. I love like the Joji bar, or some of some of the smaller like very fresh packaged food snack bar.
Okay. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, you are doing a lot of cycling. You're doing a lot of cycling races. Has that replaced, does that substitute the high of racing?
It definitely gets me into the black and white.
Mm,
So yes, it does. It feels that competitive void, and once again, I know exactly where I'm at, and it's just it. And then there's that other part of having a goal and a bookmark, right? I have a goal, something to train towards, which gets me off my butt when I'm not feeling so like motivated.
yeah.
And then I'm like, what races did I hit in 2019? I can kind of go through, my list and place myself in 2019. It's the years that I didn't race that I feel like, man, did I even live that year? Like I don't remember a thing from it.
Right. Yeah. Um, with the way everything is there a race coming up that you think you'll be going into?
It's it's a little vague right now. I would say no. I want to there's some events I want to hit, like and some that have definitely been scrubbed, like
Yeah.
wiped from the calendar. But we're going to get up to do Rebecca Rush's Private Idaho, which is it's kind of a long gravel event,
Mhm.
and like I guess Labor Day. No, sorry, Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
And so that's a little ways out there. It should be
Yeah.
good.
How many miles is that?
I, that's a good question. I'll have to look before I start training. But I think it's a pretty long one. So it's in that 100-mile range on gravel and some good
Wow.
climbs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long does it take you to prep for one of these races?
Well, it depends on how serious I am. So I've done some pretty big events like last year. Ahmad with Fast Track, the owner of Fast Track, is a dear friend. He had said, Eric, I really want to do the BWR. And it's the Belgian Waffle Ride is a big one. It's 146 miles. And I was like, this isn't going to happen. I'm not going to train for it. Like, he's shit talking. And lo and behold, not only did he do it, but he like crushed. And
Wow.
it was like he had only been riding bikes for a year, but he's just a strong guy and strong willed. So
Right.
I'd ride hard. And 146 miles later, we finished with almost no training on my part. But I would say, like, seriously, if I'm going to try to get after it and run my business and stay present on the home front, I can I can do pretty good on a pretty small amount of training. I think Ben and I had a pretty good shake in the parent category with the physiology. So I think that like 12 hours a week I can do pretty good, and then maybe a couple weeks before an event I can ramp that up, and then well, let's say 3 weeks before, and then a week before back it back off, so that I can get up to like that 18-20 hour range that is probably necessary.
Yeah. I know you're on a time crunch. We've been speaking for half an hour. I'll ask one final question, and I'll let you go and deal with your business. And at any time you can say I don't want to answer, and that's good. Um, I mean, it's quite uncommon, obviously, to have a brother that you've competed against your whole life. Um, how did your parents deal with that competition and not have to like play favorites? Everybody has favorites. Okay, let's not lie to ourselves, right? You know what I mean? But how did it keep from being okay? I'm gonna focus on Ben. I'm gonna focus on Eric and whatever else.
You know, my parents are pretty funny, right? Like they're total opposites. My mom was like Haight Ashbury, kind of beatnik. Don't call her a hippie because that'll rub her the wrong way. They were like posers, in her opinion.
She's free
And
spirited. She's
yeah,
easygoing.
she's free spirited. And then my dad kind of, no, I wouldn't say my dad's the best, like the best play buddy on the planet. Like my mom might call him a square, but he is far from it. Like, just because he doesn't like, no like cigarettes, coffee, alcohol, anything.
Right.
But like when it comes to fun, like you won't find a person to have more fun with. Even like right now, he's like pushing 80 years old, and I laughed because we were at Paris, like, I don't know, like several months ago. I guess it was probably 5 months ago, and 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 he was kind of like, man, there's one kid out there that's going like, he might, I think I can get him, but like he's going pretty good. And I'm like, Dad, like, you're the fastest guy out here, okay? And that kid has a national number on his bike. Like, he's the real deal. Of
Yeah.
course, my dad knows this, but he also is like, he's right there, and he's thinking like, if I could just get the bike set up a little bit better, I might have this
I
kid.
take them.
And so like, the competitive spirit is definitely there. And but strangely enough, like, it was not put into us. Like, we went motorcycle riding as like a family affair. We'd go to like, we just go riding on the weekends, and that sometimes would be a whole week in the desert in Southern California. We grew up in Northern California, or it might be, going up to Stony Ford or something. But it was usually like, we do our holidays there, whether it was Christmas or New Year's or Thanksgiving, like we'd be out. So there was really no competitive thing going on until my dad decided he wanted to go back and do some flat trucking, because my dad was a professional racer in the 50s, 60s, and then my uncle in the 70s. And he thought it'd be fun to go do some like vet class racing. And of course, I like didn't know how, I had no idea how good my dad was, but
Right.
like he was amazing. Like, he was definitely, I think, the only thing that kept him from probably being really one of the best was that he didn't want to take the risk that it took. And he was quite happy racing like state level,
Right.
and kind of like staying on the West Coast. So so I lost my train of thought. But so he went back and he started racing Lodi, and I went with him because I was like, this is cool, I'm sidekicking with my dad.
Yeah.
And I thought I was pretty good, and I wasn't. Like, I got lapped on a quarter-mile track. I got lapped. I was so bad. And there were these kids that were way younger than me that were super fast, like Johnny Murphy and Sammy Saavedra, and just these shredders. So Jake Zemke. Uh,
Right.
so Jake was actually like, I was not even in the same like stratosphere. I don't know, or orbit. I don't know. We're so far off the back. So I kind of started going with my dad and getting a little bit better. And then I was like, Ben, you gotta try this out. And Ben's like, no, I'm skateboarding. Like, this is like my thing. And so he eventually came in with races, and Ben's so competitive that he was like, oh man, I'm pretty bad at this. I'm gonna beat these guys. And sure enough, Ben was like just getting after it pretty quick. Like, it took us a little bit of getting up to speed on the flat track thing, because we were mostly like doing dirt riding, couch
Right.
and a little
Yeah.
bit of motocross. So at no point was there ever like a competitive thing,
Huh.
other than the internal thing, which was like Ben and I, and then we had our oldest brother Torsten, who wasn't so competitive but very, very talented. And but Ben and I would just like lock horns, and we would just battle each other, and that really took us forward. I think I was kind of laughing that my dad, through all my years of racing, never gave me any tips other than to be safe, because he's like a real safe, kind of like safe rider.
Yeah.
And and I'm like, you can't be totally safe in this sport,
Right.
you gotta put it out there.
Yeah.
So so it's kind of, it was funny advice. Like, it's not the advice that you need like when you're flipping your windscreen down, or like face shield down, but
Yeah.
it wasn't the advice he was given at that point. Yeah.
No, you think of dad at the end of the day. He was a dad to his kids, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then my poor mom, like, at one point, my oldest brother, Torsten, was doing like off-road racing with like the Honda team, Baja. And then Ben, at the same time, were doing, the road racing.
Right.
And I was just like, God, like, What? How is she not a basket case?
Yeah, I can only imagine how what you put your poor mommy through.
Yeah, yeah.
One final little thing, I'll sneak it in there. What is one advice you can give to riders who are, coming close to going, hey, look, you know what? I've got about 5 years left before I know I got to get off the bike. What I'm hearing from a lot of young racers today is there's no money left in the sport. I'm not retiring riding on bikes. What's one advice you can give to some of the guys out there or some of the girls out there who are doing this seriously to say, hey, how do you set yourself up for success after when the racing is done?
Yeah, that's a good question. Big props to the girls that are out there. I should say women. They're they're paving the way for future future generations,
Hmm.
and like it takes a special kind of woman to be able to break down the barriers like that. Um, and I don't know that my daughter has that like tenacity or whatever, but that's okay. It's not for everyone.
Right.
Um, I think that you know make make the years that you're riding the very very best you can. So treat it a little bit, and I would go back and tell my 20-year-old self to at least put in some like very dedicated training time, like
Mm,
as opposed to just going like I'm gonna go out and ride around the bike and this is like time in the saddle, and time in the saddle is good. Time in the saddle can be junk, like junk miles, right?
mm,
Like put in hard, like your best effort on like a training day, whether it's at a racetrack or your backyard, whatever it is, and a thousand junk laps well, 10 jump laps, but will just make you slow, right?
right.
But one flyer will make you good. You'll learn. And so put in that effort. You have a lot of time in life to potentially do other things. So there's a ton of growth there. Um, as far as like, trying to run a business, like, doing the Backmate thing, like, and trying to help people with their health. We have our whole lives for that, but we don't
Mm,
have our whole lives for racing. So put it, put in your best effort. Do not waste laps. Like those laps are really precious. I wish, I wish I could have had like the little, kind of prod on my shoulder at times in my career where, each lap is so valuable, and you
mm,
can make those laps even more valuable if you're focused. And then, um, leaving the sport, that's going to be a little bit different for everyone. And it's a dangerous time. Like I've lost friends to it because,
mm,
uh, it's just, it's, it's tough when you have the whole world cheering for you, or what feels like it, right? You have this kind of very, um, kind of fake stimulation or artificial stimulation, and then that's not going to last forever. And one day you're going to wake up in bed and no one's cheering for me. What the heck? How do I feel good about myself? And you have to develop an internal drive and motivation to feel good. And a big part of that is being excited, right? Like I think Tim Ferriss said it really well. People tend to think like happy and sad, and that's like the different ends of the spectrum, and it's not. Those
mm,
those are two totally different emotions. But you can be excited or you can be depressed, and I really identify with that because if you don't have anything you're driving towards, you have that. Why wouldn't you be depressed? You're not doing anything,
right.
and especially if you've been in a sport and it had all that emotion, excitement around it, artificial though it, but so find something to be excited about, and
Mm,
it might not happen overnight. You might have, it might take going to some courses, some different seminars, but find something that you're really excited about, and and wait during that time. And I don't care what you're doing, but waiting is worth it until you can figure out what you really want to do.
All right, cool. Hey, Eric, dude, thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed it.
Rather. Okay, cool. Well, we'll see you again here, and I wish my best to seeing everyone back at the track. It's kind of like I think I'm gonna start twisting the throttle the wrong way if I don't get back out there. So look forward to seeing. I'm missing all my friends, and it's gonna be a great homecoming to get back out to the track. Hopefully, sometime this summer.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, thanks again, and I'd love to have you back on the podcast when you've got time.
Cool. Sounds great.
All right, cheers. Bye now.
Okay.